Hey there guys, welcome to the video. This is Snoo and I am excited to bring to you a build showcase slash guide on my current character, which has had quite the evolution. Completely out of left field this one is, and I know a lot of you have been asking me for this. This is a Vaal Caustic Arrow low-life champion with a little bit of magic find as well as optional on that. You know, I want to put it to you like this. You guys know how it goes. A build content creator, streamer, what have you, makes a build guide for a build that is probably going to be for like a league start scenario. And then, for example, they don't even like follow through with it and play the build themselves. Maybe they like making builds, and that's cool and all, but I'm not a big fan of that scenario because how do you really know if a build is good? Even if, unless you invest like tons of time in analyzing the PoE and you're very good at that sort of thing. Then you also have situations, which is usually a little more typical. That same person makes a build guide and then actually plays the build because they personally think it's the best build for them. They want to do, and they want to bring you along for the ride. This is what I did with my Soul Thirst Tornado Shot build guide, as well as the guide for this character at the very start of the league, which was Toxic Rain, low life champion. And then you actually get the proper reflection points. You get to see the build in progress. You get kind of tag along if you're doing it too. You get to see the sort of more end game gear upgrade potential that is there. And it's definitely a much more favorable scenario. And then you have scenario number 3, which doesn't happen very often. That's when somebody, a content creator, someone like me, makes a build guide for something completely different, then deviates from that plan against their own will. Deviates from the agenda of you know, playing that build, seeing it through. My agenda this league was Toxic Rain into Tornado Shot, which is still kind of what I want to do. I still want to go to Tornado Shot, but I have deviated from the sort of middle point where I was going to switch over to Tornado Shot, and I'm sticking with Vaal Caustic Arrow for now. And that's how you know that everything I'm about to say in this video is legit. Like, there's no crazy hype going on here. I've had to like swallow my pride in this sense that I made a one-off comment before the league started. People were talking about kind of hyping up Vaal Caustic Arrow. I wasn't even very interested in it. I said, you know what? I know how it plays in a sense because I played Caustic Arrow slash Tornado Shot or Caustic Arrow slash Toxic Rain extensively in Scourge League when, as far as I can recall, those builds were stronger back then. They've been nerfed indirectly through, I think, support gem value nerfs and stuff like that. So I wasn't all that interested in spending much time with Toxic Rain and or especially Caustic Arrow. Because I knew that you had to scale it up a little bit to see the dividends on that. I wanted to quickly jump into Tornado Shot. A lot of you guys watch this channel knew that. But I did what I said I'd do in that one-off comment. I said, okay, fine, I'll plug in. You know, all I gotta do is really change one support gem and the primary gem, and voila, you know, you can run Caustic Arrow. I said, I'd go ahead and do it. I'd see how it is. I did it initially when I was very early on the gear, and it looked quite promising. But I hadn't scaled my gear up well enough to really see the dividends on it. And then I came back to it a few days later when I got some more upgrades, got some higher gem levels, got the bow upgrade in particular with the Empower support. Wow. It blew me away. Especially as far as sort of easy mode blasting maps ASAP. I mean, this is one of the fastest mappers. This probably is the fastest mapper I've ever played. And you guys know I play fast mappers in general. As far as the capacity to just fully clear a map and really not leave hardly any monsters behind, this beats even Tornado Shot at a certain juice threshold anyway. Not at the ultra high end, you know, delirium orb farming, what have you. But I am going to showcase you guys exactly what I'm talking about. We're going to start by doing a couple of maps, one with Toxic Rain and one with Caustic Arrow, and you're going to see the difference in real time. Then I'm going to go through, of course, the gear. Then we're going to hit on the gem links. Then we're going to hit on the jewels and the passive points. We'll take you down to the PoE shortly. We'll do some final thoughts, and that'll wrap up the video. So I don't want this thing to be too terribly long. Let me take you in here, and we're just going to start with something entertaining, I think. We're going to start with an actual map. You can see I have unplugged 2 gems here, and I have Toxic Rain as well as Efficacy support. Those would be the ones I substitute in. I am simply running the same exact strat I've been doing, so we're just kind of showcasing what you've already seen me do in previous videos. This is the Eater of Worlds, blasting maps, grand design, fairly easy maps. But you know, when you do fairly easy maps, you can still put the pedal to the metal and go as fast as possible. And now, I want you to pay very close attention on this showcase right here, right now. Just watch the clear. You can pay attention to the defensive layers, the recovery, and everything you want, but really pay close attention to its clear capacity. Now, I have unspeakable gifts. That's why you're seeing some explode. This is not a Gloom Shrine. It's just unspeakable gifts notable on a cluster. But you can see, certainly the damage is there, right? I obviously have very nice damage going on here. I just kind of hit and run. Of course, an Essence monster gets obliterated pretty easily, right? You wanted to pay close attention to see how fast that Essence monster dies, because single target. This is an all-arounder build. It's pretty good at everything. You can kind of get a sense. I'm supposed to be clearing the altar minions. That's the primary focus here, so I really don't want to leave any alive, and that's going to come back to haunt me a little bit when you realize that I actually am leaving some alive, even though I'm trying to go through this about as fast as possible. I got some increased AoE, and wow, you can see I'm almost dying there because it's kind of hard to kill things off screen. As you can see, you know, I'm kind of focused on where I'm at currently and just carpet bombing the area I'm standing, picking up a little bit of stuff as I go. You know, this map's pretty fast. You know, I think you'll find it's going to be about maybe 3 minutes, a 3-minute clear. Getting a couple of altars. Rusted Scarab's not that great, but, you know, my loot filter is pretty tight. It is in the description below. Of course, the POB is in the description below. The Atlas will be in the description below. Might even be a few other things, like a Discord channel, which you can come by and talk about this build. We got a build help channel where we discuss many different things. A lot of, you know, I'm not the only one running this build. A lot of different people are. Okay, so I even got a mini acceleration speed shrine, make me go a little bit faster. But there you go. I mean, you can kind of see we're almost done with the map. Almost done. And most people know about Toxic Rain. They know how good it is. People don't know about Caustic Arrow quite as well because it's not nearly as popular overall. But I've got a fairly well-scaled Toxic Rain. I mean, good lord, this gem is level 31 right now. So it's doing tons of damage. Probably doing, you know, in the tens of millions of DPS, honestly. There you go. Okay, so it's done. Now, if I ran back through the map all the way through, we'd definitely see a few monsters still alive, hanging around. I mean, you can tell by the way I cleared it that there's still probably a few monsters alive. Now, watch this. We're going to sub it out. And, you know, just to prove the point, how good this build, I'm going to throw in a Beyond 8-mod Corrupted map. The other one was 8-mod Corrupted too. But we're going to run it exactly the same thing we did. And we're going to run it with this setup. There's hardly any differences between Toxic Rain and Caustic Arrow as far as, you know, the gearing is concerned. I mean, basically it's a choice between attack speed or damage over time multiplier, in which case both of those are good for Toxic Rain. All right, so here it is. You might be seeing slightly better clear. I don't know. Maybe just a little bit better. And I have to clear these monsters twice because I'm killing Beyond monsters. But it doesn't really matter, does it? Because the puddles just stand there and they die anyway the second they spawn. So that's pretty nice. Here's an Essence monster. Let's see if I can kill this Essence monster very quickly, because Caustic Arrow is known to have much inferior single target. Okay, not quite as fast as the Toxic Rain, but pretty good. Very few moments when my single target really matters in a map like this. But who knows, we might spawn the Beyond boss, and then we'll really get to put it to the test if that takes place. Yeah, so if you ask me, it was just a world of difference. Magic monsters all die almost instantly. Rare monsters dying almost instantly. Only unique monsters really survive a little bit. And guess what? There's not enough unique monsters that I can't just use a Vaal Caustic Arrow when I encounter one. Or Essence monsters, for that matter. I am farming essence, so I'm seeing essence monsters on every single map. So that should kind of prove to you that, indeed, the single target is there, especially when you use Vaal. I've only used Vaal Caustic Arrow, my actual Vaal Caustic Arrow. I've only used it once in this entire map. I'll use it right here. You can just kind of see. Oh, okay, look, a Beyond Monster spawn, so we're lucky. We're going to actually get to see this. Okay, so I use it right there. I used it just now, and I'm dead. Okay, well, it still packs quite a punch. Not rolling with my headhunter buffs anymore, am I? Okay, I'm just going to leave him alive in there, and you can see, so I showcased, anyway, the kind of clear there is, and you got to see, obviously, the defense is pretty good there. The recovery is pretty good there. Beyond monsters are some of the most dangerous monsters in maps, so getting charged and actually taking that hit and dying, not that surprising to me at the moment. It's kind of unfortunate, however, because I am level 98, trying to level to 99, so I definitely don't like dying. And of course don't like dying while making a video, but we're going to include that because that's the authentic take, isn't it? I usually run a Headhunter these days, so of course it's much easier to survive. Headhunter offers virtually no damage increase to the build, but it does offer a fair bit of defense. So for the sake of this showcase and build guide, I'm not going to run a Headhunter because it's just so much added investment cost into the build that it's going to be out of reach for many different players. And it honestly, aside from the defensive point of view, it doesn't really add that much value, actually. Take a look here. We'll just go ahead and start. We're going to ease into the gearing so you can kind of see what the gearing is looking like. We're going to use I'm going to start with the most peculiar item of all, which is a gluttony. Probably like this must be one of the least popular belt options in the entire game. You know, to be honest with you guys, I think a well-rolled Stygian Vice is probably better, maybe better, but this belt has a whole bunch to offer, including a great opportunity to get a corrupted implicit, since each belt only costs like maximum 1 chaos. You can probably get a good or even a double corrupted implicit from Vaal temples, as long as there aren't too many people searching this belt. But you can see it comes with a nice max life roll. It comes with Culling Strike against cursed enemies. Now, how am I cursing the enemies? Well, that does require a special roll here. But once again, Despair on hit on these gloves is not quite crazy, and you don't have to use Worm Sign gloves. You could have a Hunter-influenced ring as well to curse on hit if you needed to. But again, I wouldn't use this belt unless I had curse on hit for sure. Curse on hit has been nerfed significantly. Despair in general has been nerfed as well. So we've received a double nerf to curse. All I get out of this curse now is minus 15 res on enemies. That's it. It used to be way more impact than that. So I'm not really getting a huge amount of value out of the curse anyway. It's worth it to chase still, I think, for a relatively low price. But certainly the combination here does make it kind of nice. And of course, if you're not cursing enemies, you wouldn't get any value out of the life or mana on hit, which actually has even more value for Toxic Rain, which is important to mention because as you begin this build, you're not going to just start off with Caustic Arrow. I'm going to be talking, when I get to the PoE, I'm going to talk about how, you know, this build, Caustic Arrow, is actually not very good on a sort of nothing gear setup. You really do have to have a certain baseline amount of gear. You have to have a certain level of primary gems. In my opinion, probably around 25 is a pretty good benchmark to hit before you really want to think about switching to Caustic Arrow. But anyway, let's not get too deviated. It has take 107 physical damage when you use a movement skill. Well, that sounds absolutely terrible, except when you realize just how much recovery I have, and in fact the dynamic between the adrenaline ascendancy point, and how low life and you know, blood rage is kicking in, and still running divination distillate to hold that down. There's a whole lot of it's actually a blessing, not a curse, to be taking 107 physical damage every time I use a movement skill, which has a very short cooldown because of my Watcher's Eye. So I'm talking about a whole bunch of different things right here, but we're going to get into that later. Let's stay focused on this one here. You have no armor or maximum energy shield. So maximum energy shield literally doesn't matter. In fact, that is a blessing because it makes blood rage always drain life to keep the divination distillate going in top form, as well as to draw me down into proccing adrenaline for the ascendancy point. So I actually really like the modifier you have no energy shield. I don't like you have no armor. Well, That sounds terrible, right? I'm a champion. I have no armor. Unacceptable. Well, let's see how much armor I have without it. Oh, 6,000. Well, that's basically like having no armor. For anyone who has ever played an armor-based character, 6,487 armor is essentially no armor anyway. So, who cares? Wait, didn't I say this is a highly defensive character? Where are my defenses coming? We'll get into that soon. How am I so defensive without any armor?
I can't do this just yet.
You'll find out soon. Okay, let's move on. I'm using the Gull Helm. This is optional, and you definitely don't need this corruption. If you don't have this corruption, you just simply have to anoint the amulet with sovereignty. It makes up for it completely. And you lose out some withered impact, but not that bad. The Gull Helm is just one of my favorites. It coincides terrifically with shrines. Shrines are on the Atlas device in the form of domination, and it's terrific for that with all kinds of mapping. Makes mapping a lot easier, makes you go even faster, makes you even tankier, and maybe you can survive the Beyond boss a little bit better than I did momentarily ago. Now, actually, I'm going to save the bow for later. I run with Lori's Lantern. This is, again, extraordinarily unpopular ring. I can get the corruption I want. It was very easy, very cheap to get bleeding or poison immunity, which are both good. I even went the extra mile and got a double corruption on it. I did not double corrupt this myself. No way in hell I would spend the currency for that. I was still able to buy this ring for like less than a Divine Orb. Even this ring right here. Because people aren't... The only way this is good is if you're running a champion and running with adrenaline, with low life, set up with petrified blood. But if you are doing all of that, you get the full impact of every single modifier on here, which is an incredible list of modifiers, assuming you get the full impact of them. Damage of enemies hitting you is unlucky while you're on low life. Now, I am sometimes hovering above low life with the Divination Distillate, but, you know, when it's crunch time, when the defenses matter the most and my life is draining or what have you, well, it's going to be on, and that's time, so that's good. Certainly, going on to Divination Distillate setup, maybe there are some better options, however, but I'm still just going to use it until I make a full-blown switch to Tornado Shot down the road. This is a hybrid Magic Find build. You could have a Hunter Influence ring, you could have all kinds of different rings potentially here. Do I still have my ring that I had? Yes, I do. Okay, here was the ring I was using beforehand, just to give you an idea. Max life, minus mana cost is nice. A big strength roll, which I don't even need anymore. Some chaos res, fire res, some red, you know, just some sort of ring. Not too bad. But I prefer to play with some Magic Find and some Quantity, especially. Quantity is still very good this league, so I decided to go ahead and put the Ventor's Gamble in. Sometimes I run Reliquary Scarabs too. Okay, and then actually I'll save that one there. Another crafted item, I did self-craft this. You have 70% chance to avoid elemental ailments from the passive tree. When you go into the Boyer section of the passive tree, you have access to up to 70%. So you just need an extra 30% to clear it out there. I went ahead and essence spammed on this fractured base here. It was pretty easy to get this, to be honest. I just kind of did it until I got some decent suffixes, and then, you know, prefix cannot be changed. Vaal Chaos Orb, finish it out. Benchcraft of your choice, not too bad. I do not actually need the Onslaught on kill. It is a nice quality of life, but I already have an Onslaught flask there. And that is those boots. They're just kind of middle of the road, pretty good option. You can use Tailwind boots if you want, but I figure 5% action speed full time, as well as some cooldown recovery rate, is pretty nice for that. Wormsign and Darisol's Defiance, I've talked about these before. They go together hand in hand. I'm getting a ton of added defense. When we talk about the gem links, you'll see Immortal Call is playing a humongous role in my added defense here and here. When I die from that Beyond boss, you can check the replay. I virtually guarantee you Immortal Call was not up, but it is up a lot with this character in maps while you're killing. So rest assured, it's a lot of defense when the momentum is rolling. This build definitely relies on having momentum on that. So you do lose the endurance charges when you get hit or when Immortal Call goes off. So the correct response to that is just kill more, kill faster, kill more faster. That's the answer. The more faster you kill, the more better your defenses are, if you get what I'm saying. I'm an English teacher, did you know that? All right, next is the bow, quiver, and amulet, which are 3 major big craft ones, and I'm saving these for last because one of my next videos I'll come out with maybe in a few days is going to be how I crafted these items, or how to craft these items to set yourself up really nicely. If you can craft these 3 items anywhere near as good as I did, you definitely have the gear necessary to run Vaal Caustic Arrow over Toxic Rain. So this is the stereotypical hunter influenced bow. It's been around for, my god, probably like years and years and years of playing. This is the quintessential Caustic Arrow and or Toxic Rain bow. For Toxic Rain, actually here's my backup of the other one I had. You can see it's the same thing really, except attack speed instead of damage over time multiplier. You're committing to Caustic Arrow if you go damage over time multiplier. Attack speed is better for Toxic Rain in general, but for Caustic Arrow you don't really care that much about damage over attack speed. The quiver is a double dot multi hunter influenced quiver, quite difficult to craft. In fact, in my opinion, there's the least amount of determinism in this craft. It can be really painful to try and craft. I got pretty lucky and I was able to buy it halfway finished already, pre-bought. I had a live search set up for it, and I will show you guys how to craft this down the road. But you don't have to start off with this. I like starting off with a fractured damage over time multiplier quiver, and then blowing in shrieking essences of woe, and that'll give you, your high max life roll, your damage over time bow skill rolls, your damage over time multiplier, as well as some other suffix. It's hopefully decent. You can bench craft something remainder, and it's still at least like 70% as good for a fraction of the cost. But yeah, this bow and this quiver, we're talking here in the neighborhood of definitely in excess of 6-7 divine orbs for each of these items. And then the amulet is even more expensive, but it is quite deterministic. There's very little in the way of bad things that can happen in crafting this. It just involves a whole lot of meta modding to take place. But I ended up buying a fractured damage over time multiplier. Alt span for the all skill gems, went from there. Eventually you're able to pretty easily finish this out, even with a veiled modifier in there. It was not exactly one of my choice, but I'm still able to get -7 total mana cost. This amulet looks extraordinarily, I know, to the eyes. It's actually quite simple to craft. It's still going to cost you a bare minimum like 15 divines, so I think to get this kind of the way you want. Maybe not even that, maybe like 12 or 15. Okay, and then that's it. So we got flasks. I wanted to run Onslaught flasks. Flasks are now effective with Onslaught as a buff, so increased effect of Onslaught means I want to get my Onslaught on my flasks. It's a whole lot of extra attack speed and damage there. This is the perfect flask in my opinion, with the perfect curse. Reduced effect of curses on me. Bismuth flask, because I'm not quite res capped without it. I would be running a pure gold flask, but I still took on the suffix to give me some rarity there. And then a bottle of faith is very strong. Just spamming this onto the ground. Enemies still take an extra 10% damage. You do not have many sources of extra damage taken. Well, you do have withered, I guess, but still nice to get a little bit more. No effect for the critical strike chance there, but really it's all about the heals and the extra damage taken, as well as the static 40% increased damage from the implicit here. Is still quite powerful. Divination Distillate is me trying to do a little bit of magic finding, sort of like the tornado shot setup with a low life petrified blood, kind of easing into that transition with the Divination Distillate. Still very good. Still get some extra life recovery from even points like Heart of the Oak from this. Still counts for that. So that's pretty cool. And then the quintessential alchemist Quicksilver flask of the order. One of the suffixes needs to be reduced mana cost of skills, because you can see this thing costs a whopping 52 mana. Well, now it costs 31 mana thanks to this suffix, so that helps a lot. You get even more reductions from the worm sign when you're at maximum endurance charges, which is fairly frequently while mapping. And then of course we're still getting 7 from there. You can get 7 more from a different ring if you want. You do not need this skill to cost 0. It does not need to cost 0 because a level 21 clarity is in play, or I guess a level 22 clarity since I got all skill gems increased. So that's a lot of extra mana per second. And, you know, I can show you right here. You can see that, hold on. There we can see I'm not able to sustain that. But if I have the flask on, suddenly I can basically sustain it virtually. With a little bit of extra mana on hit from here, I even have one on my my basic jewel. It works out pretty nicely. That's it on the gear. Let's move into the gems. So there is, of course, a highest DPS 6 gem link version for Caustic Arrow. It is exactly what I have. Awakened, Swift Affliction, Arrow Nova support. Well, Arrow Nova supports kind of the cool guys variation of multiple projectile support. Really nice for Caustic Arrow. You want to get as much coverage as you can. It's super good for that. By the way, even though it's hitting in the middle and missing everything, if there's an enemy there, it also hits there and actually drops a puddle there when it hits any kind of enemy. Just so you're aware. And then vicious projectile support, void manipulation support. These are, again, the name of the game is get as much damage as you can from the support gems. It's always been that way. There is a few unique situations where you're going to go for quality of life, such as Awakened Arrow Nova support. But then we also have Empower support, because the thing is with Toxic Rain and Caustic Arrow, both of them scale tremendously off of gem levels. That's like those two skills do not scale well at all, generally speaking. However, they scale stupidly well off of gem levels. Certainly at least up to around level 30, which is Caustic Arrow Hero. I got one extra skill gem level recently from this amulet. My damage went up by, like, I'm not even kidding, like 15 or 20%. It's actually insane. Just from getting the skill gem. All right, and then let's see. We can move on to the Focus Ballista Totem setup, which is going to be Toxic Rain, which will help a little bit with single target and to be able to spam this Caustic Arrow with having enough mana recovery. We can force a lot of Toxic Rain down when we need to stand and spam, like I was going to do on that Beyond boss or the Essence monsters. These are the gem links I choose to run. These are not very expensive. They could be Awakened. Definitely like Anomalous Efficacy support, a whole lot of extra skill effect duration there. And then, yeah, it's very classic self-cast Caustic Rain, Focus Ballista Toxic, or Caustic, I always get that mixed up. Self-cast Caustic Arrow, Focus Ballista Toxic Rain is what this is. And you can interchange different things. You can try different things if you want. There's a lot of Ballista focus builds, or builds that focus on the ballista as the primary source of damage. That's not what I'm doing here. Now, we also have to get our Petrified Blood in for the low life, for Adrenaline and, you know, Divination Distillate and all that. We got Malevolence and Haste. These are two damage increase or speed increases for our build. And then Blood Rage, because I just don't have any room for any other aura. So, where's Determination? Where's Grace? All I got is Defiance Banner. That's all I need. It's free with Champion, by the way. All I got is Defiance Banner. No need for Grace, Determination. Don't need it. Why don't I need it? Well, I'm a champion. I get maximum fortify. I get increased effect of auras. I get, let's see, what else do I get? Oh, I get, well, let's take a look here. Adrenaline, 10% increased physical reduction. If you read Adrenaline down there. Fortify, max Fortify. I also get Immortal Call, because I like Immortal Call, Darasil's Defiance, Worm Sign. If you do this setup, Darasil's Defiance especially, with Immortal Call, and if you add a level 4 enhanceable or level 3, you're going to see some pretty dang insane uptime. Anomalous Immortal Call, I think it's even better too. Oh yeah, and an increased duration support. So, increased duration support combined with a level 4 enhance, combined with Darasil's Defiance to keep me flooding in those endurance charges, combined with wheels like this, increased duration, more skill effect duration, all apply. Not to mention increased level of all skill gems, It's pulling in some weight. You can go rewind this video and go take a look at just how insane my Mortal Call uptime was. You can see it was, I don't even remember, it's something like 75% uptime. It's actually insane. And it just gives us a crazy amount of physical and elemental damage reduction whenever you have that up. So that's how I can get away, in great part, how I can get away with no determination, or no grace, or no purity of elements, anything like that. So those are the gem links. That is it there, except for this last one. I forgot the life reservation setup. Defiance banner is free. Arrogant support to get this reserved on life. All I got is vitality and clarity. Max level vitality and clarity. That's it. Nothing else to put in there. Don't really need precision. We need a little bit of space there in between. I don't want a huge amount of space because I want to be able to slip down into adrenaline fairly easily. In fact, if it was really up to me, I'd probably have even more space there. I mean, less space. Maybe like 2/3 of what you see there. But it's a little bit awkward to try and set that up. Could maybe get a precision in there with a low level or what have you. So that is it for the gem links. Let's move over to the passive skill tree and the jewels. So I already kind of looked at the champion. You can see here, I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal. I decided I wanted to build my character around first to strike, last to fall for how insane it is. You know what? We don't even get any value out of Intimidate really on this build, but I will with Tornado Shot, so I'm looking forward to that. Definitely don't get any value for 500 plus armor while fortified because I don't have any armor, but 20 fortification is huge. 30% increased effect on curse auras is huge. Banner, reservation is pretty huge. Yeah, just absolute powerhouse of an ascendancy. You all know that. A champion's pretty crazy. Just comes loaded with all kinds of added defense. Let's kind of scroll through here. Let's see, we can address spell suppression first. Now, I'm actually not spell suppress capped, 96%, so I mean, I'm about to level up again. I could, just throw 1 point into here or something to get a little extra spell suppress, but I got a lot over there. I'm getting a lot out of Mage Bane. I used to put points into Entrenched. I could throw up points into Reflexes, whatever. It's very, very easy. Very easy to get spell suppress. Or I could just get more dexterity, I guess, if I wanted to. Getting a little bit of help for resistances. These points available to Survivalist or Sentinel. I also have a basic jewel. It's giving me a few resistances. You'll notice that my resistances are not capped, right? Not capped. However, they are capped pretty easily with the Bismuth. And then if I also use the Divination Distillate, I mean, that will cover altar downsides effectively pretty well. Not too big of a deal. I got 4,000 life, and that's because I'm taking a lot of the life nodes, of course. I have to take thick skin and all of this stuff here. This wheel here gives me corrupted blood immunity as well as 50% reduction to chance to get hit by elemental ailments. 20% additional down here as well as max life. Really pretty high value points used there. And getting a lot of extra max life from things like Bravery, from Revenge of the Hunted, from Blood Siphon, from... thought there was some others, maybe. Oh, the Mastery, of course. And from some basic jewels. A Watcher's Eye. It's kind of going all over the place here. This is an option you don't necessarily have to do. I like taking these routes. It could technically, I don't know, go for a medium cluster jewel down here or something instead, but I think this is pretty good value. You're getting some pretty good value out of this. I, of course, love finding some movement speed, getting a little bit of chaos damage, some life, some intelligence is helpful, some damage over time. Skill effect duration as well is helping with Withered Step and Immortal Call. Speaking of Withered Step, check out this Watcher's Eye. It's actually pretty crazy how beneficial the cooldown reduction rate, that much cooldown reduction rate is. Let's take a look here. So here's what it looks like when I'm mapping Withering Step. Look how fast that swings back through, and that's just pumping Withers out like right and left. And then giving me Elusive on a Divergent setup, so sometimes it's the Elusive stays on me longer. Also some added defense, but more importantly for the speed, of course. Back to the Watcher's Eye, immune to poison while affected by malevolence, immune to bleed, so I'm bleed and poison immune, as well as elemental ailment immune, as well as corrupted blood immune, so a lot of damage over time, safety going on there, because with the Petrified Blood setup, Half-Life setup, damage over time is your biggest weakness. So being immune to bleeds and poisons and ignite and corrupted blood is like stupendous. You'll notice your survivability go through the roof whenever you become immune to that. With or without. What was it with all that increased aura effect? 398. 398 life regen. Basically all from a vitality gem. Okay, so that is kind of what's going on with spell suppress, with life. Let's see. Oh yeah, also get 4 mana on hit when I use a mana flask included with the divination distillate. So I get Heart of the Oak and Primal Spirit's effectiveness from 1 hybrid flask. Taking on some life, or rather some attack speed nodes. You know, attack speed does have some value. It helps with the focus ballista setup, but it's not huge. Damage over time, just kind of getting a little bit of added damage from some of these here. Not super mandatory on, you know, nodes like Farsight and Avatar the Hunt. They are pretty good, though. A lot of people like to go down to Master Fletcher, which isn't too bad, although you don't get any value out of projectile speed, really, with this build. So actually, it's not that great, in my opinion. Some nice damage mods here with damage over time multiplier is one of the biggest sources of increased damage. Hunter's Gambit, wasting with the Chaos Mastery is really nice. There is a totally optional way you can go all the way up here to get Atrophy. Maybe some improved aura stuff down here. Although people typically went up here for the extra curse as well, which is not really necessary. Now, some people talk about Temporal Chains as a great curse with Chaos builds. It's not actually for Chaos builds, it's for Poison builds. And this is not a Poison build. Now, I know some of these kinds of Caustic Arrow builds turn out to be Poison builds, but there is no Poison going on here, so the damage is authentically just pure skill-based damage that's going on here. Got Max Frenzy for little added damage, another jewel. There's nothing super special with these jewels, just some damage over time multi, some life, some resist, just trying to get some decent value out of them. Let's look at the cluster here. The cluster, I think, is the last thing to really look at here. So in my opinion, definitely want this large cluster. It's actually not that expensive, although if you want Unspeakable Gifts, it can be kind of crazy. It's expensive. That one is kind of hard to hit. Usually there's a different modifier than Unspeakable Gifts, but I definitely like the Explode. definitely like the Explode if I can get it. We've got that in an 8 passive cluster. Then medium clusters here. You can see this would be something pretty typical. Wicked Paul, Eternal Suffering, something like that. You don't get a huge amount of value out of the medium clusters, which is why I actually went for... I'm trying to get Megalomaniacs as well. I'm looking at reduction to Malevolence or Haste, which is Mortifying Aspect, Frantic Aspect. I did have a small cluster here to cover that, but you know, in the event that you can get a nice Megalomaniac that's got some pretty nice mod, absolutely go for it, because you're not getting crazy value out of the medium cluster anyway, and you're saving points that way. Alright, so that's about it on the passives. Time to check out the PoB. Let's do it. So, with the PoB, if you want, you can take the PoB I have in the description, and you can just load it up here. You can import your own character. I'm actually showing you this from scratch. So I will load my own character in. I'm going to show you exactly what you have to do here. You'll notice it doesn't show any damage. So if you want to see, here's something very important takeaway. How much damage do you really need to be in a high-speed mapping situation for it to be enough? You're going to go to skills. Here, you're going to go to Vaal Caustic Arrow, and you're going to include in DPS. And then, actually, you'll probably want to swap these, just Caustic Arrow, because I'm not blowing Vaal Caustic Arrow all over the place. Now, configuration already pre-configured here to give you kind of more appropriate damage multipliers and everything you would get from configs, like Withered and all that. 2,694,000 DPS. That is a huge number for Caustic Arrow. It's just blanketing the entire ground with that much DPS, essentially, at all times. And you don't need that much. in my opinion, to get around to a place where you're feeling nice, where you can just attack and go and like not even look behind you and just wait to hear the sound of loot coming behind you, knowing that you're basically killing all of the white trash monsters, all of the magic monsters, and most of the rare monsters, you need probably at least 1 million DPS there. So you can see that's a lot less than what I have, but it's actually not way less gear than what I have, because again, you're scaling the gem. That would be something like a level 25 or 26 caustic arrow, as opposed to 30 or 31. If you only had 1 million DPS, I'd say it's absolute bare minimum 500k. You want at least 500k. I remember when I checked, and when it wasn't good enough, I was around 200 to 300k. I remember that. I still remember that. So I had about 200, 300k caustic arrow DPS when it just absolutely didn't cut it. And I had to stick with Toxic Rain. But hey, you know what? That's not so bad. Not so bad. I mean, you did see me run the Toxic Rain setup anyway. So the rest of things you do is you enable a Vaal Caustic Arrow. You go and enable Toxic Rain, which is going to be a little bit more damage from the Focus Ballista setup. And then also need to enable regular haste. And you can see I'm right at 9 million DPS in total. So when I stand still and nuke, with no Headhunter buffs, by the way, no Soul Leader, nothing. I don't actually have Soul Leader on this build right now. I'm doing around 9 million DPS. So that's why Essence monsters and Beyond monsters and map bosses and everything still die pretty quickly, because you're doing 9 million DPS. 315% increase in movement speed multiplier. Kind of crazy how fast it is. It's really, really fast. I mean, that's Raider fast, is it not? I think it is. Of course, that is with Vaal Haste enabled, so, but not that much of a difference if I throw Vaal Haste down. So very nice numbers there. Absolutely satisfactory for how much DPS you would need to pull off mapping the way you saw me map at the beginning of this video. You only need you don't even need half of those numbers, honestly. All right, because Caustic Arrow lasts for a long time, so it doesn't have to like one-shot the enemies or whatever. Let's see here. I think that's about it to show you on here. This is the configuration for damage. Now, this does have 1,000 rampage stacks. It does have 4 overlapping pods. It could have 5. Technically, if I have 5, it would move it up even higher. You could have 4 there. Intimidated. It doesn't even do anything, but it's still there. Minus 15 Chaos Res. That's because Despair on hit gloves doesn't actually show up in the config, so I had to manually put minus 15 res. That's how much minus res is on enemies through Despair on hit in the current game. Adrenaline, wow, Adrenaline is doing a lot. The effective hit pool numbers aren't accurate anymore. I don't know what the deal is with that, but I mean, you could obviously tell when mapping my effective health was good. Maybe there's something I don't have quite edited over here. Have you killed recently? Actually, yes. That does matter for Leech. Power charges, no, doesn't make any difference. You can see the frenzy charges definitely add some DPS. You can see Onslaught doesn't actually add DPS. Oh, it's because it's coming in with the flask anyway. Okay, I'm permanently phasing anyway from the Watcher's Eye. That's right, permanent phasing. So if you don't have the Watcher's Eye permanent phasing, you need that as a flask. Probably. Or you can... Actually, no, you don't. You can go up this way for the phasing. I would have the flask and the phasing, however. Alright, so I think that's it. I think that's about it. So that's how you kind of import the build. You kind of see for yourself. I think it's very important that you are able to identify bare minimum at least 500k Caustic Arrow DPS. And I don't know, it may come out to like 3 million grand total, something like that, as a kind of baseline for this build. So this is not exactly league start, but my final thoughts would suggest that this is a terrific league start build. Now, I'm not supplying you with league start trees or whatever. You can check out my Soul Thirst Champion guide for something like that. But this is a showcase, kind of a build guide, at least in the sense of this is what I'm working on right now. This is what it kind of looks like to move forward. And you don't have to run Caustic Arrow. You can run Toxic Rain. Absolutely, Toxic Rain is good enough until Caustic Arrow becomes good enough. And I can't really think of a much smoother transition than Toxic Rain to Caustic Arrow. There's not a single thing that you would change in here that I can even think of off the top of my head. Not a single thing that I would get rid of or that I would change in the passive points to switch from Toxic Rain to Caustic Arrow. The only thing is the gear and basically the weapon. Might go from attack speed to damage over time multiplier as the first mod in order to craft the weapon. That's about it. So just stick with Toxic Rain. Gluttony, Toxic Rain, still very good. That Gluttony belt, really good. Or Soul Thirst, if you're doing that too. And, you know, if you're wanting to blast through maps, if you're just wanting to spam Sanctum, I assume that it's probably pretty good. Although Toxic Rain probably is better with Sanctum because it's much more single target DPS. And, yeah, you wouldn't be relying on, like, Vaal, the Vaal gem to do that. But definitely if you're just mapping through and through, doing altar clearing, doing essences, spamming, even if you're doing Legion, I didn't showcase Legion, Breach, Abyss, whatever. This build is still capable of doing those things. Delirium maybe up to like 20, 30, 40, maybe like max 60%. My build, with my current gear, I could probably do like 60% deli. Would still be alright. I think I will actually in the future be featuring some Delirium and or Beyond farming with this build. Probably back on Crimson Temple again. Yeah. But that's it. I want to know your guys' thoughts. I want to know what you think about this build. It's actually kind of crazy how strong it is, how fast it is in particular. And, oh, I almost forgot to mention, when it comes to, like, the Megalomaniacs and stuff, I think, you know, you can... All you need is the Mastery. Grace has 25% increased mana reservation efficiency. And if you got a Megalomaniac that where you 2 Megalomaniacs could fit in Mortifying Aspect, Frantic Aspect, as well as the one with Grace too. Get all 3 of those between 2 of those Megalomaniacs. You probably could actually fit Grace into this build, for real. But you want to have... The problem with Caustic Arrow is you need to have some unreserved mana. I have 108 now. That's more than you need, actually. You need at least like 50, like bare minimum, 50, 60. You also need to have enough to cast Withering Step and Immortal Call too. Those cost some mana as well. Anyway, that's it. That's all I've got now for this video. This is... I hope this presentation on Vaal Caustic Arrow is good. I don't see hardly anyone talking about Vaal Caustic Arrow. People were hyping it up before, but I don't see that many people actually using it and having some sort of reflection point on it, especially from the vantage point of never intending to run the build and then running it anyway because it's just that damn good. I think speaks volumes for the build in and of itself. Give it a try. If you're already running Toxic Rain, you haven't even looked at Caustic Arrow, absolutely you should at the very least test it out for yourself. Give it a try. You don't have to change hardly anything. You don't have to change clusters, gems. You don't have to change gear really at all. So it's incredibly convenient. Now, if you're not running Toxic Rain, you want to do Caustic Arrow, yes, okay. That's going to require a major overhaul. So think twice about that. But that's it. I'm looking forward to doing some more legit farming. Finally going to get my get my butt off of Mausoleum. I'm going to go into some more higher stakes farming, I guess. More lucrative farming overall. And that's where you're going to see me in the upcoming videos. Okay? Take care. Bye for now. See you in the next video.